Welcome to ILTV's Israel Weekly, where we discuss the latest in Israel's geopolitical developments. I'm Aaron Porras, and our topics today are the viability of Prime Minister Netanyahu's recently expressed hopes in the United States and the increasing tensions within the coalition while the Prime Minister was away. On the panel this evening are expert on the Middle East from the Begin Sadat Center at Bar-Ilan University, Dr. Mordechai Kedar, Miki Gitzin, the Executive Director at the New Israel Fund, Ziv Maor, the Editor-in-Chief at Midah.org, and Yotam Yakoba, the head of the public activity from Peace Now. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and his delegation recently returned from a trip to the United States where they were received for meetings and conferences with the White House, AIPAC, and several other top United States officials. Throughout the Prime Minister's itinerary, he continued to bring attention to his growing concerns over Iran, President Trump's moving of the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, and Israeli-Palestinian peace negotiations.
Israel remains committed to achieving peace with all our neighbors, including the Palestinians. President Trump has made it clear that he is committed to peace. I have made it clear that I'm committed to peace. We appreciate the efforts of President Trump's superb team, Jared Kushner, Jason Greenblatt, and Ambassador David Friedman. Thank you all. Thank you all for your hard work for peace. But to get peace, President Abbas has to embrace peace and to stop supporting terror.
All right, now, Miki, I'm actually going to start with you. Netanyahu is basically calling out Abbas, telling him, stop supporting terror, come to the negotiating table. What incentives does Abbas have to do so?
At this point, it doesn't look like neither Abbas nor Netanyahu have any incentive to do it because no one is actually committed to the notion of peace. We're looking at Dr. Netanyahu and Mr. Bibi. Bibi speaks in English about peace. Here he goes within the Likud center speaking about annexation. There is no one clear message that comes either from the Palestinian Authority or from the Netanyahu regime about peace. The issue is two parties that really want to keep the status quo because it serves their political survivor at this point. And it's very a pity because both peoples, Palestinians and Israelis, pay the price.
Well, I must wonder what price, and I must wonder what is the benefit, if whatsoever, of any connection currently to Abbas. But basically, the Palestinians are not coming to the table because they have nothing to offer to Israel and to the Israelis. Currently, there is peace, not because of Palestinian efforts, but because the IDF keeps Israeli citizens. Basically, there is no need when it comes to the interest of Israeli citizens in any kind of negotiations. The situation is fine right now. It could be better, but it only depends on our government.
But typically, when you're talking about a negotiation, it's not what do I have to offer, it's what do I have to gain. And the Palestinians seem to have everything to gain by coming to a negotiating table. So why wouldn't he do that?
Well, because of the essence of what Palestinianism is. There is no acknowledgement for the concept, for the existence of a Jewish state whatsoever in any part of the territory between the sea to the river whatsoever. When this is the case, when this is the most basic demand that Netanyahu presents to the Palestinians, there is no wonder that they do not come, because once they came, once they acknowledge this demand, once they approve of it, there is no justification for the existence of a Palestinian concept.
I see. All right, now, Dr. Kedar, I'd like to come to you now for a moment. Netanyahu mentioned a Trump plan. Now, details about any sort of Trump peace plan in the Middle East are very scarce, but what has come out seems to be that it would not be based on the 67 borders. It would allow limited sovereignty, demilitarized state, some land swaps. Again, do you think that that's a viable option to have?
Not at all, because the basis of this plan is that everything in the Palestinian Authority will be based on the existence of a Palestinian people, and this is the main basis of the whole thing. While everybody who knows anything about the society of the West Bank knows that they are all tribes, they don't get married with each other, and creating a state like Syria or Iraq will end up like Syria and Iraq, because this is the culture of this region. What can I do? This is the facts. Of course, there are people who ignore this fact, especially from the left side, either in United States and here, of course. But unfortunately, people are dealing with things which they have absolutely no understanding about. And this is the problem. Because the only thing which works here is Emirates.
So you're talking
Emirates in every city.
So I wanted to
an Emirate in Hebron, an Emirate in Jericho, an Emirate in Ramallah for the local clans.
So again, how would that be a simpler thing to keep a watch over than one centralized government?
this is the only thing which is viable, because every state in the Middle East is a failing state. Only the Emirates in the Gulf are viable states because they are based on the sociology, while Syria and Iraq are conglomerates of tribes, ethnic groups, religious groups, and sectarian groups which never made a nation. Never made a nation. Citizens, yes, but not a nation. And this is the source of all evil in the Middle East. And once the world, and especially the Israeli left, will understand the essence of sociology of the Middle East, they will start understanding what mistakes were done in order to avoid those mistakes in the future.
Yotam, I want to hear from you. Yeah,
Basically, when we talk about peace, we're talking about two-state solution. And if somebody in this
cannot
table,
work.
okay, we can agree to disagree, but basically, if we want to go and establish a two-state solution, we need to deal with all the core issues: Jerusalem, refugees, borders, settlements, non-militarized Palestinian state. All of those, we need to go in issue by issue and talk about them. And Netanyahu, in this moment, he buy time. He purchased time. We know that his investigation, his indictment is on the way. We know we probably are heading to election, and he doesn't want to deal with this. But maybe the important thing from AIPAC is that Howard Kohl, the head of AIPAC, also said that he's committed and AIPAC committed to two-state solution. Even the Republican, the hard right,
Well, there are voices which objected.
Okay, but the
Inside
majority,
AIPAC.
but Howard Kohl said, I'm pro two-state solution, not a merits solution.
He should be elected to the Knesset, and then we can consider.
No, but
his
this is
opinion in
Netanyahu's
whatever
best
way.
friend. This is Netanyahu's
No,
going
he's
for
not
the
Netanyahu's
home
best friend.
court.
You know, it's quite upsetting to hear you. Netanyahu has gone to speak at AIPAC as he hasn't gone to speak in any other place, because AIPAC and the American Jewish people are the allies of the state of Israel. Your really nasty try to kind of like make a dispute between American Jews and Israelis was been a partnership since the beginning of this country is something very insensitive.
I must say that it is quite peculiar to me to hear this from the Director General of the NIF, an organization that exists on separating between the Jews in Israel and the Jews in the state. This is what the NIF does.
You know what?
You are articulating Israel that does not exist, political discourses that are revealed to anyone here.
What about actually trying to, for once, to stick with facts? American Jews supporting in the NIF, the funding of the NIF comes from American Jews.
Except for those who do not.
No, our funding comes from the American Jews, and that's the fact. And the reason they do it because most American Jews, by numbers, by
Only
facts,
American Jews?
no, only American Jews.
Nothing comes from the Gulf?
No, 100%.
To the organizations
No,
themselves.
no,
the money
nothing
comes from the
comes
government.
Just a second. Let me finish. 80% of American Jews are, vote for the Democrats. 80% of American Jews see themselves as liberals. Those people who have been for ages, since this country was established, the best partners of the state of Israel, they should keep on being our partners. And the right wing today is trying kind of differentiate between American Jews and Israelis. And this is a pity that will be actually a price that we as Israelis will pay for a long time.
Quite the contrary. The very existence and the strength of the State of Israel currently presents the American Jews with an internal conflict. Now, the NIF suggests or offers a solution to this conflict, which is the wrong one. You present Israel as if a different Israel. Israel does not exist in reality, and this is what you absorb the donations for. You're trying to make Israel more similar, politically wise, to the United States, while the actual
I would like to mention what Netanyahu was.
Mickey, let me finish. I'll let you finish earlier. The actual topics that at hand currently in Israel are not the one depicted and are not the one designed and presented to American Jews by the NIF. All that you do when you represent Israel is fake news, and this is how you get the donation. Indeed, those Jews do donate to the NIF, but not to the true Israel.
I want to say something. Prime Minister Netanyahu was speaking clearly about one notion when he spoke. Was one about Iran, and the other one is the issue of equality, justice. The mutual values of the United States and Israel. The issue of equality came over and over again. When he speaks about equality, he speaks about equality to LGBTQ people, to women, the Israeli Palestinians. Those are the values that Netanyahu speaks about when he speaks at AIPAC.
So
when he comes back.
Riffing off of that, though, I mean, is this something that Netanyahu is incapable of doing and Abbas is capable of doing? Is the onus only on Netanyahu?
No, I just want to say that the American Jews in the States support the future of Israel. This is why they support the two-state solution. And Abbas and Trump are not in the same relationship that Netanyahu has with Trump and Trump administration. And this is the problem that Palestinians should work out. But in this way that we go and move the American embassy to Jerusalem, this is a one-sided move that could not lead to a binational agreement or tri-national.
Not at all.
There is no
Why is
nation
that?
to do a binational agreement
Because
with.
if not only the American, if all the embassies will be in Jerusalem, our neighbors will understand that the fight against Israel has failed.
They already know that. They already know that, Moti.
They still try to
Moti,
defeat us.
nobody thinks that IDF is a weak army.
Final point.
Nobody
Let's move
thinks
on.
that IDF and Israel is a weak army or weak state. Nobody thinks that way. Wake up, Moti.
Listen to them. Listen to what they say.
The level
in
of
Arabic.
confidence is so
Moti,
low.
are you insecure? Are you
Listen
insecure?
to what they say
What is
in
your
Arabic.
self-confidence?
What is got to do
We
with
have a
What is
Because Israel is a
still
strong
finding us
country that
in
can
the
support
mast,
itself.
in the
You
mast.
are always working such a fearful way that you always think what the others will say.
Because we
What
stick to the
about us
facts.
as Israelis?
right,
What do
What
we
about us?
believe
We
in?
fear for our lives because
gonna
we
have
know
to-
that in the mosques and in the schools and in the madrasas over there,
Of course you
they
do it,
keep
because
wording the
you use the same language.
To try to
Chairman,
keep
I
us
apologize.
because we are Jews. This is the way it
because
is.
you use the same language.
Well, I apologize
You kind
for-
of feel the same.
We
I
can
never
hopefully
call
continue this
anyone.
conversation
Not
in
to
the
see
next
the
topic.
reality.
We can
Let's
hopefully
move on.
continue this in
Let's
the next
move on.
topic, but yeah. All right, so now while Netanyahu was away, investigations against him were heating up with the addition of former Netanyahu media advisor Nir Hefetz as state's witness. At the same time, top members of the coalition have been engaging in an argument over Orthodox draft legislation that many speculate could end in early elections.
Is this job as exciting as you once thought? And what's the pleasure of being prime minister?
Oh, investigations.
So has the job changed in 10 years? You were prime minister for 3 years, then other positions, and then you came back as prime minister. So has it changed in the 10 years a great deal?
Israel is a tough country to govern in a tough neighborhood, but I think the position that you have to understand is that you cannot gripe about the political system, which I tried to change, by the way, but you just do what you can. And the places where you can do the greatest change is crisis.
Okay, so this time I'm going to come to you. And how big is this crisis in the coalition?
Well, I think it's a managed crisis because it gives an open door, a legitimate exit for Netanyahu to go to election. Whether he will eventually use this exit or not, it's up to him to decide, and the decision is being made in these very moments. But the thing is that going to an election not on the basis of those irrational and irrelevant investigations that are basically a fishing hunt against him, but on a very important topic and issue for most Israelis is something quite wise on his behalf to do.
Yotam?
I believe Netanyahu is going for election because he only can gain from those elections. He wants to get again his mandate really soon to his indictment. When he will put another government together, maybe 4 weeks before he's going to be indictment, he will say to his coalition members, you need to hold tight, although I'm going to a trial. I believe he's going to a public trial, although he's going to be prime minister in the next Knesset, and I'm really worried that this is going to damage the Israeli society.
How are you so sure that
I'm not
this is
sure.
going
I'm
to
just
end?
this
Sure,
is
but
just
I mean,
foreseeing in
so,
the
okay,
most.
so I'll rephrase.
Yeah.
What makes you confident that this will end in an election?
I believe Netanyahu knows his days are numbered. He knows he's going to get an indictment on case 1000 and case 2000. And I'm putting aside 3000 and 4000. So this adds up to indictment what he need to deal with. And Israeli standards today are that you don't sit with a prime minister that is in front of indictment. This is standard. He's going to change the standard. We're going to see a different standard in the Israeli society and the Israeli politics. This is a dramatic thing.
In the past 3 decades, there was no single prime minister that the police did
Netanyahu
not.
was most of the prime minister.
In the past 3 decades, ever since Rabin, there was no single prime minister that did not have recommendation from the police about him.
Excuse me, but
the only one.
He's talking about the summary of the police.
The summary of the police. The only one that the GA eventually eventually decided to indict was Olmert, and his decision, which was not whatsoever required by law, was to resign. But you must know that in the situation that Netanyahu is currently right now, all prime minister presiding were in the same situation when the police recommended to indict him.
If one listens to Naftali Bennett, he understands exactly the situation today. Netanyahu knows that the current situation will actually allow him to deprive completely votes from his right-wing fellows. This is the reason why Naftali Bennett is speaking today about running to the role of prime minister. This is the reason why the biggest drift is between Naftali Bennett and Avigdor Lieberman. Netanyahu today is trying to get to a situation with the largest Likud and very, very little and weak coalition partners.
Well, I'm not a prophet to know what will be in the future, but what is more than clear is that the right wing altogether, Likud and Bayit Yoni, all the others, will be more powerful after the next elections.
He's not a prophet, but he's
and
guessing.
this is actually the revenge of Netanyahu against all those.
Well, but this
justice
is,
of law.
when we go to election, but when we go to election, I mean, ideally, this is
There's a vendetta against democracy.
Hold on.
What are you talking about?
You didn't want me,
Hold
you
on.
get Bennett.
This is
I'd
a
like to
discussion
know-
of a mafia,
I'd like to
not
know- I'd
of
like
a
to know-
democracy.
There is
When you say-
there is in a mob.
This is discussion of a mafia. People that do not agree and do not accept the rule of law. There is only one who is above rule of
Well,
law,
I
and it's
wanna-
Prime
I wanna
Minister
go towards
Netanyahu.
some of the
The
wording
rule
here,
of law
'cause you're
says the
saying-
prime minister only resigns
but-
once he's being charged with an irreversible
No, it doesn't say.
verdict.
There is
Hold on,
no
but Dr.
basic
Kidal,
law.
you're
No,
saying-
that's the
you're
ethical.
saying that
No,
this
no,
is-
This is the ethical standard.
The ethical standard has got nothing to
But
do with
Dr. Kidal,
democracy. That's the
hold
point.
on.
These two gentlemen do not actually care about the results. Even if
Well,
Netanyahu is convicted, they're going to keep.
Well, instead of making
We have no faith in the
accusations,
police, the GA, in the courts. That's the
what they
point.
that's what they
Vicky,
actually
please.
said.
I'd like to know, when you're saying that it's a sort of revenge, I mean, we're talking about an election, something that the population actually does. So how is that?
He, by behaving the way he behaves, he says to everybody, to the prosecution, to the police, to the media, to all everybody who was against him, including the NIF, he said, hey guys, you didn't want me? Okay, now you get Bennett.
It's
You get
the
Lieberman,
same coalition,
or-
Moti, I don't understand.
No.
It's going to be the
It
same
will
coalition in
it
the
will
same
be-
seats,
No, it
more
will
or
be
less.
Bigger, it will be bigger coalition.
Why should it be?
And
So why
the
is
polls
it-
doesn't show
it
it's
will
going
be
to be
more
bigger.
like-
By the way, Moti,
Why is Bennett so stressed? Why is Bennett
No,
so
it's not
stressed?
at all.
No,
Yeah, I'll tell you
unless you don't read the same headlines as I
Yeah,
do.
and also El Chapek is doing
hears the
everything to
advice-
stop the crisis.
Bennett listens to the advice of his advisors, but the thing
But he
is,
doesn't think that way.
What Netanyahu is currently doing is basically brilliant because the
is
question
brilliant.
is.
By the way, I
the question is- let
agree,
me
it's
finish.
brilliant
Let me-
for his
let
side.
me- No doubt about that. The question is whether or not he's going to be indicted. The chances that he will be indicted during an election
it's very
is
hard.
very, very low during the election
he's
itself.
trying
because
to
it will
interfere
be
the
considered-
work
Hold on. The
of
truth-
the
the truth is
prosecution.
about it is-
That's what you're
The public
saying.
in
He's
Israel,
trying
yes,
to
the public
interfere
in
the
Israel,
prosecution.
Yes, the public in
When it
Israel
comes to
has no
indictment,
faith
Yes, it's quite
in
a
the
sad.
prosecution, in the
It's
police,
quite,
and in
it's
the
quite a
courts.
sad situation.
People does not-
He's trying to interfere the
no
work of
doubt
the
that the coup
prosecution.
that we're
Is-
witnessing on behalf of the
Even-
media, the coup
hold
that we're
on.
witnessing on behalf of the
Even if-
police
even
is
if-
indeed a sad situation. The response from Netanyahu is as
There
sound
is
as it
only
would
one
be.
leader to the right wing, which is Netanyahu.
Even if investigations were to end in an indictment, can we agree that that could be months or even years away?
Month.
No, not
few
years.
months.
No one speaks about years.
No,
Even
no, no.
at
We're talking about
Indictment?
September, October. This is
Indictment,
the estimations.
Actually,
But the question
beginning
is-
of the
But an
proceedings.
indictment-
Wait a minute, the question
would
is,
be in about a
can
year.
his coalition fellows should stay along with him or should they resign? And the answer is they must resign. They cannot
I think-
sit with
well, I don't
Netanyahu
think
if
that
it's been
there's a law-
indictment. This
Well,
is
they do-
period.
Well, I don't think that
End
there's
of
a law
discussion.
against siding with
No,
the
this is an
Prime
ethical
Minister.
opinion. This is my opinion. This is an ethical idea. I'm not talking about a law. They can stay there by the law. They're not criminals.
By the way, the
Let it-
person that Netanyahu himself put in this position, I'm talking about the General Attorney Mandelblit, actually said in closed doors, and we've heard it from all through the media, that he won't be able to keep it in this position after he is indicted. This is clearly the people that he himself pointed. The chief of police, the Attorney General, those are people that were actually put in this position in order to keep Netanyahu in power.
Who would
They are
you
not
put in
injured.
place? Who would you put in place of Netanyahu, and why?
I'm not here to put politicians. No, I'm not.
I mean,
Wait a
just,
minute, Iran,
I mean, who else would be capable?
Maybe let's say.
I would put
Because that's-
politicians.
I think
Wait a minute.
that's
Let's
I would
wait a
put
minute.
Hakeem
Why
Taleb.
should
Hold on,
why
hold
should
on.
Netanyahu take a leave for absence and put somebody else one of the high ministers of the Likud prime minister
I tell you
instead.
why,
Why not?
he is the elected
Why not? Why
prime-
could he just?
I tell you why not. He is the elected prime minister of Israel. He
No,
got the
but
mandate.
people-
No, let
even
me
if-
finish.
even if
He got the mandate for the public,
even
and
if
his
it's
role.
not-
His
even if
role.
it's
His
not-
role.
even if it's
Wait a
corrupt-
minute.
Let me finish.
Wait a minute.
His role.
One at a
His role.
time.
His
Yeah.
role.
Even if he's corrupt?
His role
Wait a
is to
minute.
function.
What?
He is not
Mickey.
corrupt.
No,
I do not believe that. Most of the
Mickey,
public do not believe
gentlemen,
that.
we can't-
I have a
we
question.
cannot keep yelling
If
at each
it's
other.
proved by judges in Israel, in the courts of Israel, that Netanyahu actually is a corrupt prime minister, are you gonna call
Definitely
for him to?
Definitely not.
So
It's the
you don't
third
believe
time
in
I'm saying
democracy?
this.
Wait a
It's
minute.
the
You don't believe
third
in
time I'm saying this.
democracy?
The public has got no faith in the courts. That's the way it is.
So
they see,
avoid,
they
avoid,
see,
avoid
they
them.
see,
One at a time.
they see,
Wait a minute.
they see the courts as political entities
guys.
just as members of
No,
the Knesset.
the
I wanna
first
just-
of all, public
Wait a minute,
both
Mickey,
show
Mickey.
something completely
Gentlemen, we
different.
can't-
But that's
we
okay.
can't keep
just
yelling
want
over
to
each
say,
other. Thank you.
in the Israeli democracy, people vote for a party, not for a candidate. We vote for a party. מפלגת העבודה, the Labour Party or Likud Party. Netanyahu's name is not it's not an option. The Likud is an option, and people vote for Likud, not for Netanyahu. Netanyahu is in the first one in the list. This is correct, but there's no reason why another minister in the Likud will not
don't
take
presume.
the.
Aaron,
Yeah,
what you see,
I'd like to go.
Please do.
Yeah.
One sentence. During the last 20 years, since 1996, every elections, the right wing, altogether, came more powerful every
One election after
every
another.
elections.
Yeah, also in
This,
two-
and this,
2006.
and this is what
With 12
comforts,
seats of-
and
for the Golden
this is what comforts the normal people here in Israel. That the next elections, whatever will be there, with corruption, with enlightenment, without, the right wing will be even more powerful than it is now, and start getting used to it.
So why Ayelet
so hold on.
Shaked? Why Ayelet Shaked
Unfortunately-
is so afraid she's not going to be a minister and stop this crisis right
What
away?
we see here
know,
are
she-
people who sit
she
here and
started
actually
before-
disgrace
what I'll
completely
do-
the notion of
so what
democracy
I'll
and the
do
rule of
is-
law. They have no
We have
respect.
free speech.
No
We have-
respect.
No,
No
you
respect.
totally agree.
You-
The
no
judges
respect
have no
right now
respect
for
for the people of
democracy.
Israel and for democracy
Hold on, hold on,
whatsoever.
guys.
Stealing, killing, raping,
Yes.
nothing to do with that.
No, the Supreme Court has
because legislation.
we don't have alternative
Even
to the
if
law.
all the facts presented to the public
Even
so
if they
far are
if
true.
they kill,
Okay.
if they rape, doesn't matter.
Even if all the facts regarding Netanyahu presented to the public so far are indeed true, Netanyahu is not corrupted in whatsoever way.
Stealing is not corruption.
Well,
That's
he
what
stole
you're
nothing.
saying.
He stole nothing.
Yeah, okay.
Well, unfortunately, I think with that, it is our time for this week's Tile TV's
you.
Israel Weekly. Again, I'd love to thank our guests, Yotam Yaakobah, Miki Gitzin, Mordechai Kedar, and Ziv Maor. And thanks to all of you for tuning in, of course. Remember to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Aaron Porras, and we'll see you next week.